Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar. Not only is it Erev Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar, but Shavuos is mamish right around the corner. I want to start off with our question for the Shabbos table as follows. Now we know the name of something is its essence. The name, the way the Torah, the way Chazal refer to whatever it might be, shows the essence of that thing. The Gemara in Yuma calls this Sefer Bamidbar. We call it Bamidbar. Chazal and the Gemara call it Sefer HaPikudim, the Sefer of rememberings or countings. Sefer HaPikudim, Chumash HaPikudim. Why is that the defining characteristic of this Sefer? There are two Pikudim, there are two countings in Sefer Bamidbar. We have in the beginning in Parshas Bamidbar, then later on in Parshas Pinchas, when they're getting ready to go into Eretz Yisrael in that last year, they also have a Pikudim, they have a counting. Why is that the defining idea, concept of this Sefer? That's the question to pose at the Shabbos table, and that will start a discussion of what exactly is the point of a census, and what was the census in the beginning and towards the end of the Sefer coming to do. That's kind of the discussion that we're going to have. It's also interesting, question number 2, to point out that the countings were done in a very different manner. The counting in Parshas Bamidbar and the counting in Parshas Pinchas. In Parshas Bamidbar, there's a very heavy emphasis on each shevet by itself. They were counted according to the way that they were chayne, that they encamped around the Mishkan. And in Parshas Pinchas, it was very just went through all the Shvatim and counted. There wasn't any connection to where they camped. Why was the counting of Parshas Bamidbar dependent on how they camped? And in Parshas Pinchas, it was just a counting of the Shvatim, in one shot without going around the Mishkan. So both of these points, both these Lekudas, the Netziv of Talid, Tzvi, Yehuda Berlin, Zecher Tzadik Levrach, the Rashiv Volozhin discusses. And in his Hakdama, the Hemed Dover's Hakdama, to Sefer Bamidbar, he has the following insight. He says, Sefer Hazen Nikah b'Mishnah b'Yoyma, the Mishnah in Yuma, Piataner b'Chnina ben Gamliel, the Soita also comes up in Soita, Chumash HaPikudim. This is called Chumash HaPikudim. Hach Kosev HaBahag. Baal Halachas Gdoilus also refers to the Sefer as the Chumash HaPikudim. B'Nirsham b'Das Rabbi Seinu Inin Shnei HaPikudim, Shebzeh Sefer, Yoyser Mishari Dvarim Shemichadim B'Zeh Sefer. The idea, the concept of the countings of the census made such a roishim, an impression on Chazal, much more than the Meraglim, the spies, Bilam, and many other things that happened in Sefer Bamidbar. It was the Pikudim, it was the countings that caught the attention of Chazal. Mishum Te'ikr Zeh Sefer Hu HaMachlif, the Tachlis, the main point of this book is to depict the transition, the Machlif, Mishana Halichas Am Hashem, and the changes in the way that the Am Hashem, God's nation, is carrying itself. B'chaye ha'olam me'oz shegiu le'eretz Yisrael. This sefer is about a contrast of essentially two different nations. The nation of Klal Yisrael in the desert, and the nation of Klal Yisrael going into Eretz Yisrael. Shebamidbar hayu misnagim b'midas tiferes. Zok the Netziv, in the desert, the Yidden were going with Midas HaTiferes. Shalach min Moshe, it was a splendor. We describe the way they survived in the desert with the word splendor, Tiferes. There, Hashem was acting with them totally above the laws of nature. The man fell from the sky, the clothing didn't wear out, it grew with them. But in Eretz Yisrael, they went in there, al derech hateva. They went into Eretz Yisrael with the natural order. The sister Hashgachas Malchus Shemayim Baruch Hu, without being able to see directly that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved, although he is involved, it wasn't perceivable. This already started, this change in Hanhaga, whether Hashem is going to act with us in a miraculous manner or the Hashgacha is going to be hidden, already began in the 40th year. They were in the desert in Parshas Chut. There was a war with the Knani and the Sichon. All those wars that happened towards the end of the Sefer were all al pi derech haTorah. And on this shinoi, this change in how Hashem interacts with Klal Yisrael, Chazal and Bereishis Rabbah, in the beginning of Bereishis Rabbah say, Vayavdel Elokim ben ha'or uvein ha'choshen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu divided between the light and the darkness. Zeh Sefer Bamidbar. Steht in Medrash, this refers to Sefer Bamidbar, the light and the dark. Shu mavdil ben yoytzi Mitzrayim uvein bohei aretz. Because this differentiates between those Jews that left Mitzrayim and those Jews that came into Eretz Yisrael. The Bahalichus yoytzi Mitzrayim, the Or Hashkachas Hashem, was Mefila Ein Kol. The Yidden who left Mitzrayim, there was the Kriyas Yamsuf, there was the Mechemes Amalek, there was the Mon, there was the Be'er Shel Miriam, the Ananei HaKavod. It was amazing. The Kfayt Hashem was the Tachlis Habri. Everything was open. Mashe Ein Ken, as opposed to the Ba'ei Haaretz, Haisa Hashgacha Mechusa. The Hashgacha, Hashem's supervision over us was hidden. Rak Hamabit Ba'ayin Yovahu Margish Ba. You had to look clear, like today as well. It's Anochi Aster, Panam Mehem. Hashem's Hashgacha is hidden. Like someone walking through the darkness at night. Only sometimes do we see a clear expression of Hashgacha. That's the Mavdil Ben Or Ve'Nachish. And it says the Netziv that this difference can be seen in the Pikudim. This difference can be seen in the way the Yidden were counted. The first counting in Parshas Bamidbar, when they were still in this amazing Hanhaga, that's the Mailam in Ateva. So Hashem counted us according to our encampment around the Mishkan, which is Dugmas the Maisim Erkava. The Sfarna also in his Akdama has a similar idea that in the beginning of the Sefer, we were mamish like Malachim almost, like we were like the Maisim Erkava. The plan was to go into Eretz Yisrael without Milchama, without war, L'mayla Miderech HaTeva. But in the second counting, which is in Parshas Pinchas, we see this change. It's no longer according to the way we camped around the Mishkan, it's just the Shvatim. There are other differences that the Netziv points out that indicate that the counting in Parshas Pinchas was the regular, normal Derech HaTeva, the counting, as opposed to the counting over here. The idea is a very important idea we see here is that in life, there are changes in a person's life, whether it's a personal life, on a communal level, on a national level. Sometimes we're zoichet to halicha, that's the Mailam Min HaTeva. And sometimes the halicha is not the Mailam Min HaTeva. It's very important for a person to recognize, to realize what situation he's in. And different situations require different tools, different ways of managing, of persevering. But the most important thing to remember is that if I'm in a certain situation, I have to act appropriately according to that situation. Had the Yidden counted themselves according to the way they were camped around the Mishkan, in that counting in Pinchas, that would have been the wrong counting. Even though we'd rather be L'mayla Min HaTeva. We have to recognize if we're not L'mayla Min HaTeva, that we have to act realistically with the situation that we're in. The Chumash HaPikudin defining characteristic, defining concept in Sefer Bereshis is this change. When there's a change in Hanhaga, there's a change in my life, I adapt to that change, and I try to excel and to be successful and persevere in that new reality. We should all be Zoiche, as Shavuos is coming up. I've mentioned a couple of times. The Gemara says in Megillah, Shavuos is a Rosh Hashanah of sorts. We're Nidon al Peres HaIlon. Therefore, we get a din of a Rosh Hashanah. It's a new time to redefine ourselves. We can put ourselves in this new situation with higher expectations. We keep pushing ourselves. We should be Zoiche Taket to Makabel the Torah with a renewed vigor and excitement, and have a good Shabbos and a good Yom Tov.